Understanding what charisma is. Charisma, that trait that can launch someone into stardom like nothing else, that can build empires, destroy nations, or get you a superior dish in a restaurant. From a very common perspective that only sees in it some tangible inborn traits, to a more profound outlook which points to a phenomenon that cannot be explained in rational terms and links it to something mystical, charisma has always been a fascinating subject in itself. In trying to define and understand the word charisma and the reality behind it, one is bound to consider the idea of synchronicity, of timing, of presence, being in the moment, sensing when it's the best time to speak or to remain silent, feeling the right words that should be uttered with the exact tonality and the stress put exactly where it should be put, knowing when to be persistent and when to simply let go. You can't just be in the moment without learning to pay attention first, to be an observer, to listen and master the art of staying focused. It's all about the ability to connect with yourself and the willingness to go all the way in getting to know who you truly are and what you can truly do and achieve. It's about discipline and awareness. When you're watching a movie, you see about 2 hours of continuous footage which can affect you in so many ways, from getting you excited, inspired or scared, to making you sad, curious, or merely entertained. But those 2 hours are the result of many hours of planning, organizing, rehearsing, filming, editing, shaping and reshaping, until a final piece, a final product, a final statement is made. And you have it all in just one go. The same is with people. You might see this completely knock-your-socks-off charming person who effortlessly handles situations and people in such an elegant fashion, but you can't see all the hours of self-work and patient polishing skills, behavior and attitude he or she has put into it. You can't see the hardships, the doubts, the fears, and the tears that have ultimately shaped that person. Think of a martial arts master. His spontaneity and ability to adapt to any condition will seem natural to anyone watching him in action, but you know very well that behind them there are thousands of hours of practice. Behind them lies persistence. It doesn't mean that an inborn inclination or talent doesn't play a role in it as it does with everything. It only means that without preparation and dedication, any initial advantage is mostly wasted. Also, think of an actor whose performance you've observed over the years, or whom you can trace back to his or her debut. Probably the talent was there right from the start, but that refined, confident, well-mastered performance in later years took a lot of time and practice to develop. Maybe you've taken part in discussions about some charismatic figures, the kind with a Made in Hollywood mark on them, or about someone whom you actually know. Or maybe you've debated the whole charisma topic before. If that has happened, or it is only now that you are first taking time to consider this subject, there are some stereotypes that will naturally be brought to a table. That is because every time we see someone displaying an impressive level of magnetism and appeal, consciously or not, we try to find the roots of this magnetism, and we try to understand what makes a person so socially successful. However, when we do that, we often do it in such a way that is not exactly healthy and beneficial for us, our self-esteem, our self-development, nor our purposes. We either put that person on a pedestal, endowed with qualities which we would never dream to even come close to having. We lower that person in our eyes so that we can feel better about ourselves. Or we look for all sorts of differences that obviously make our circumstances disadvantageous compared to those of the charismatic person we are discussing. Growing up in such a wealthy family, I'd be charismatic too. Or, who has time to work on charisma when you work even on weekends to support your family? Or, he is an actor, of course he knows how to be charismatic. Is this type of mentality familiar? These reactions are mostly triggered by certain stereotypes. What we have come to think and understand about charisma is based on some preconceived notions borrowed from others, subscribed to through social standards, or cultivated by movies and media. The most obvious and poisonous stereotype related to charisma is that one has to be physically attractive to have charisma. We've always been led to believe that these features are entirely prerequisite, inseparable from any possibility of being charismatic. We are so accustomed to seeing beauty and charisma merged together in movie characters, or with real-life successful people, as an inextricable relationship, that unless we see ourselves as gifted with undeniable beauty or sex appeal, we deny ourselves the right to manifest charisma, and we become blind, unable to see our own charm. Do a historical research and you will find tons of examples of charismatic figures that failed to meet society's norms for beauty and attractiveness, yet fascinated millions with their magnetism. Take Barbra Streisand, an actress who has never been considered beautiful by conventional standards. On the one hand, I'll be compared to an Egyptian sculpture, and on the other hand, people think I'm awful looking, she said in an interview. My opinion of myself is probably a little bit of both. Did others' opinions ever stop her from following her dreams? No. I saw myself as a movie star, wearing beautiful dresses and making grand entrances. I daydreamed quite a lot as a kid. I always believed I was destined to be somebody very special, she confessed to Ingenue magazine back in 1963. And she did become somebody very special, somebody with colossal success, wealth and fame, an icon to inspire millions of people by breaking the rules of what society dictates as beautiful and charming. She got to tell her own story of what charisma is all about. But that was not easy. As she admitted once, even her own family was far from being encouraging and supporting because of the same reasons, her looks. There are traumatic moments like, "Ma, I want to be an actress," and the answer is, "Well, you're not pretty enough. You better cut your nails off and become a typist so you'll have a job," she said. When she saw me act for the first time, she said, "Your arms are too thin." Now, changing the register, as hard as it would be for many to chew on this example, it is rather hard to ignore it, especially given the power and consequences charisma ultimately had in this case. Adolf Hitler, one of the most influential political figures of the 20th century. He constructed such a charismatic image for himself that he managed to deliver to the people an atrocious ideology wrapped in the most attractive package. We can't deny good looks don't come as a plus on the charisma chart, but they are certainly not indispensable in making up a charismatic figure. Actually, if you adopt the habits presented here meant to make you more charismatic, you will notice that charisma is not going to be the only thing enhanced on you. The side effect will spread to your attractiveness in ways that may surprise you. You know what charm is? A way of getting the answer yes without having asked any clear question. Marilyn Monroe. Well, get ready for not having to always ask a clear question. Now, let's see what charismatic people do to gain and maintain their charisma. They keep their composure in all situations. Composure. I must admit that besides the concept itself, I even like the sound of it. Composure is essential. Why? Because most of us can't help picking up on very small signs and signals from people, or reading a more complex situation sometimes too early in its unfolding, and rushing to make huge, hefty judgments about others or about circumstances altogether. Lacking composure hardly allows you to take on big projects and goals, because your creative thinking and energy will be consumed by those little things that just seem to be always working against you. But nothing can ruin your composure unless you allow it to. And if you do, it means you are weak. You see now how it works? When you lose your calm, the others will perceive you as a weak person, and weakness is not cool. Weakness is not very charismatic. On the contrary, if you prove to be Mr. Composure even under very challenging circumstances, this strength will add dramatically to your charisma reservoir. People will think, "Wow, this guy has it all together." If you study the behavior of leaders, of all types, you could very well start with this department, composure. You can easily see it in action by checking someone's attitude, body language, and the image they put out. Given today's fast-moving society, with its business environment continuously subjected to rapid changes, and the confusion, stress, and uncertainty this speed can sometimes create, it's only natural that the top traits of a true leader must include, besides the ability to accurately evaluate and improve their performance, that of inspiring trust and security. More than once I was in a team where there were people lacking this essential trait. I especially remember this partner who was always panicking for the smallest of problems. It was such a pity, because in fact he was extremely good at what he was doing and had impressive qualifications. However, despite these pluses, his inability to keep calm got the best of him, and that led to many awkward and uncomfortable situations where his employees were not being treated properly, and eventually some had to leave. They were even calling him the drama queen behind his back. And that was kind of sad, such a capacity wasted because of a lack of composure. I also remember there were these 2 important deals we failed to close because he couldn't control his reactions, which made a completely negative impression on our potential associates. Although he would often try to make up for these outbursts with smiles and jokes, this type of attitude put more holes into his charisma than in a Swiss cheese. We stopped collaborating soon after those missed opportunities. Therefore, always watch your composure. It's one of your greatest assets in terms of interpersonal skills. When you overreact to something either with too much eagerness or with too much negativity, people will most likely be put off. Just ask any woman and she'll tell you that a guy who keeps his composure, no matter what, is infinitely more attractive than a guy whose horses are always loose and on the run. They connect with people on all levels. To successfully interact with people, you need 2 elements. To be interesting, making others interested in what you have to say and curious about your views and opinions, and to be interested, making others wanting to share their stories, views, and opinions with you. Usually, when someone scores well in the charisma department, they are very comfortable with both speaking to and listening to people. Everybody appreciates a good story, and what better way to connect with people and draw their attention than by having interesting things to say? But that is not enough. The way you tell your stories is just as important. Lacking confidence when you speak, inappropriate body language or indirect engagement to those you address will not make you the life and soul of the party, no matter how exciting your story is. American TV personality and businessman Willie Robertson mentions in one interview how storytelling influenced his life and got him where he is now. He says, "As kids, we always sat at the table with my parents and grandparents, and they would tell stories. We were very poor, so that was our entertainment, getting good at telling stories. So, if you were a kid and you told a story, it better be good, because you're holding the audience there. I really think that's how we learned and shaped our charisma." And I must agree, charisma is storytelling. A charismatic person tells a story by his or her sheer appearance or presence. Part of being charismatic means being able to communicate what you want to say in a clear and concise manner, knowing when to keep a serious, thoughtful tone, and when to sprinkle jokes in a conversation, and put some humor on the table. Humor is one of the most important tools you can use to start or spice up a conversation. If you can make a person laugh, preferably not at you but with you, there's your connection. And it's not about making only your closest friends laugh or only a certain type of people. The more this ability spreads on a wider variety of people, the more it shows your capacity for understanding different contexts, different situations, and of course, different people, and adjust and play on them accordingly. We've also mentioned listening as an extremely powerful feature. So many people overlook it, maybe because for a lot of them this feature seems passive. That is an error. A good listener is very proactive and always observant. You want to enhance your charisma? Then you better enhance your listening skills, because without them, your charm, however flavored it may seem at a first impression, will quickly fade, as those interacting with you will soon perceive you as a posing egotist who just likes to hear himself or herself talking, and the world is just full of those. Pay attention to what others are saying. Don't just pretend to be interested. Without genuine empathy and compassion, there's no genuine charm. Murray Raphael is one of the world's most revered speakers and consultants on direct marketing, advertising, and promotion. In his book, Selling Rules, Raphael offers 52 ways to achieve sales success. He also tells this story, which I think fits our point here perfectly. A man was invited by a prominent hostess to all her parties because her guests told her how much they enjoyed his company. The hostess was confused. He was no life of the party. He was, in fact, quiet and subdued. What quality did he have that appealed to her guests that she could not see? At her next party, the hostess introduced him to one of her guests, and then, unobtrusively, remained in close proximity to hear his technique. It was very simple. After being introduced, he would ask the person he just met, "Tell me about yourself," and then just listened. He listened to people talk about themselves. He encouraged them to tell him about their jobs, their family, their hopes, their dreams. Where would they like to go on their next vacation? Why? For how long? Later, everyone told the hostess what a marvelous addition he was to the party. Here's why. The people who listen seem to care more, and are more open-minded and concerned. Those who continually talk come across as pompous, self-centered, and narrow-minded. They cultivate mystery. Let's face it, we are drawn to mysteries. So many of our activities are based on this. Think of games and of any entertaining endeavor. Their role is to keep us distracted, away from boredom or regular thoughts. Their role is to draw the mind into another reality, often surprising and unknown, which holds some amount of the unexpected. The mixture between challenge and mystery can be irresistible. Actually, mystery itself often equals challenge, as in Arthur Conan Doyle's or Agatha Christie's detective stories, where the reader is invited to solve the murder cases alongside the protagonists of the book. Things are no different when it comes to relationships and interaction. For both men and women, a partner shrouded in mystery will be more attractive than one who is easy to read. That is because when someone does not conform to a quick and easy tagging and characterization, which is, to be honest, common to both sexes when dating is involved, he or she will capture our attention just like an enigma does in a book or a movie. It's our nature. Mystery fascinates us. Standing out in a crowd will get you noticed, and what better way to do it than being different from the rest, having a distinguishable feature which no one can quite put their finger on, that which the French call a je ne sais quoi. The truth is that mysteries offer themselves to interpretation, and thus they appeal to us. They are like a spark that lights up our imagination. Photographers make use of this when they choose to conceal some parts in such a way, in an erotic photograph, for example, that makes the image even more attractive and exciting than it would have been had it revealed everything. We like it when our imagination is stimulated, and that is why the power of suggestion is highly precious, but unfortunately highly overlooked as well. People, or most people at least, like the excitement that the discovery and mapping of new territories offers them. I remember when I was a kid I drove my parents crazy with my curiosity. I liked to break down every breakable toy I had into smaller parts to see what was in there, what they were made of, how they worked. In many ways, as adults, we function just the same. We like the adventure of digging after meaning, removing veil after veil in search of a hidden significance, driven by our curiosity and imagination. A charismatic person does just that. They ignite our imagination. They use the power of suggestion rather than the power of the obvious. Knowing what to reveal, when to reveal it, and what to conceal, to let the others wonder excitingly, holds one of the most valued secrets of those who exercise sheer magnetism. For some, the enigmatic, mysterious mantle can be literally put on just like a normal person puts on a coat. That mantle is an attitude that links our mind to our body language and self-confidence, a practice that must constantly be rehearsed. Emanating something mysterious, without seeming like you're trying too hard, through your presence and attitude will create the sort of attention that spreads like a fatal disease in the Middle Ages. People will want to know who you are and what you do. If either you want to charm your way into a woman's or a man's life, or you simply want to boost your popularity or attract attention for different reasons, making use of mystery can be extremely efficient. They cultivate tact. You may have lots of qualities, and you may even have a high level of charisma working for you already. Yet if you lack tact or diplomacy, which basically represent a valuable skill and sensitivity in dealing with others or with difficult issues, your reservoirs of charm will be quickly drained. That is because lacking tact is guaranteed to get you in trouble and affect your relationships as well. Have you ever noticed how some little things that cause a lot of disturbance could have been easily avoided had there been a hint of diplomacy added there? Maybe an outburst at work because your colleague spilled coffee on you, or a heated discussion with your boss where you might have pushed things a bit too far, or a little remark about your friend's dress that was inappropriate enough to make her not want to talk to you for a long time. Truth is, a lack of tact can be quite damaging, and all your other qualities will have a hard time repairing your image once it has been ruined. Tact and charisma go hand in hand because the first is also based on empathy, and being sensitive and receptive to other people's views, principles, ideas, and feelings. One cannot become a diplomat or use diplomacy without being able to correctly perceive the signals put out deliberately or not by those around him or her. But sensing the other's output is not enough. Having the discernment and the presence to respond in a manner that diffuses potential conflicts without, however, having to sacrifice the ideas and feelings you stand for is equally vital. Even if this seems like a recipe for cooking up some charisma, nothing here can be applied blindly, without a filter that will be subjected to improvement because we are all unique, and our situations and experiences are also unique. Maintaining an open mind and keeping yourself in constant interaction with people is a must in order to master diplomacy skills. I've noticed the tendency in many people to consider these skills as merely tools to be used in the formal type of interaction and communication, at the workplace, with people they don't know very well, etc. When we start paying attention to how we can also implement a bit of tact in our private life, in our relationships with friends, our partner, or even with our family, the quality of our life will improve dramatically. Tact or diplomacy may sound dull and conventional, and to a nonconformist, unswervingly unappealing. That is only because of a poor understanding of these concepts. For anyone looking to be charismatic, diplomacy should be a good friend. It's also closely related to versatility, because it all amounts to being able to change your approach, your style, and the manner in which you interact with each particular person in each particular situation. For this, I always like to make the analogy about how a DJ should be. A good DJ knows music, knows his tools, and knows their performance. Besides these, a great DJ knows the crowd. A great DJ can feel out the people and is able to constantly and quickly adapt to what they need or want even before they realize they need it or want it. A true charmer is someone who can accurately sense people and play the crowd. Genuine charisma is usually welcome anywhere. Whether you enjoy a great deal of it already, or you've just recently started to explore its potential, making sure that you're not offending others through words and behavior, and that you properly acknowledge their likes and dislikes, should be a top priority. Ultimately, it is all about caring, but also about being aware of the consequence of your actions and your language. As Newton once said, tact is the art of making a point without making an enemy. They focus on offering rather than receiving. This one here is a complex issue, because offering itself comes with its complexities. Charisma is maybe more about being genuinely involved and dedicated to something that goes beyond your personal needs and interests than anything else. What I'm trying to say is that charisma is largely something you acquire when you're busy offering and contributing to the well-being of others, not when you're busy demonstrating how the world spins around you. This is strongly connected with always keeping an open mind and heart so that others can meet the honest listener, speaker, and even debater in you, one who doesn't put the importance of his own views and opinions above the importance of the dialogue and interactions themselves. While many people easily see charisma as a gateway to arrogance, the fact is that truly charismatic people are the opposite of arrogant. They are ready to admit when they make mistakes, and to confess their flaws and failures without aiming for a profit by it. People also tend to link charisma to success, believing that this feature is something that only accompanies a solid bank account and a high social status. Well, let me tell you something. I have traveled a lot in my life, and without any hesitation I can say that some of the most charismatic people I've met were not at all people who fit the above-mentioned categories. But they all had these three things in common: a passion for life, kindness to people, and sincerity to themselves. And you can't have these if you forget to be humble, if you don't care to share your failures, or if you don't find joy in helping others find joy. You have to care. Gary Vaynerchuk, an entrepreneur, author and CEO of VaynerMedia, once said, "I attract a crowd not because I'm an extrovert, or I'm over the top, or I'm oozing with charisma. It's because I care." Charismatic people might always be the center of attention, but one of the things that makes them so is knowing how to pay their attention to others. Making those around you feel special is a rare and very precious gift. Again, it doesn't mean you can apply it right away by simply faking out some praises and putting together some sweet words you don't actually feel. It might work for a while, but eventually people will be able to tell you're not being honest, and the damage you will create for yourself is not going to be easily repaired. The beautiful thing about it is that you don't have to try really hard. All it takes is genuine attention, and you will soon be able to see that there really is something special in everyone you meet. Moreover, you can become better and better at extracting that specialness from people, and believe me, they will notice it, and they will appreciate and respect you for it. One of the greatest weapons against depression, pretentiousness, and a lack of drive is self-referential humor. Simply put, remember to make fun of and laugh at yourself, and you'll have a tremendously powerful inspiration tool right there to help you get through the hard times in your life, but also to make others inspired and inspire them to like you more. Being too serious all the time is far from being the key to being charismatic. Look around you. Even nature herself has a good sense of humor if you consider some of the species, colors, and shapes out there. They read a lot. Charisma has a lot to do with context, and no matter how hard you try, you cannot be liked by everybody, nor should you be, and you cannot make yourself likable at all times, not even if you're George Clooney, one of the most mentioned personalities when it comes to charisma. However, versatility is a key element of being charismatic. This means you should be able to adapt to any interlocutor, spark up simple or witty conversations in the most varied situations, and insert yourself into an ongoing discussion on a wide range of topics. This is very much related to the previous points. Once again, it all comes down to being a master of communication. One cannot achieve that without always looking to improve oneself, and that also means increasing your knowledge. The easiest and most common way to do this is by reading. By extension, reading and learning may be two of the easiest ways to help your charisma. Among the major characteristics of our greatest leaders, reading habits occupy a top spot due to their power to expand vision, innovative thinking, compassion, and personal development altogether. Where most people go wrong is not having enough variety in their reading habits. Keeping your reading limited to only one or two areas of interest will limit your creativity and thus your charisma as well. Only by remaining constantly open to the infinite universe of information books offer can you significantly broaden your knowledge and improve your ability to connect with different types of people. John Walters features quite a few titles on his professional chart: film director, actor, screenwriter, stand-up comedian, visual artist, and journalist. He owes this diversity greatly to his passion for reading, and what I love about him is that he doesn't hesitate to be bold, funny, and to be himself when he urges anyone to embrace this passion for books. You should never read just for enjoyment. Read to make yourself smarter, less judgmental, more apt to understand your friend's insane behavior, or better yet, your own. Pick hard books, ones you have to concentrate on while reading. And for God's sake, don't let me ever hear you say, "I can't read fiction. I only have time for the truth." Fiction is the truth, fool! Studies have shown that reading leads to a drastic increase in intelligence and interpersonal skills by enlarging your vocabulary and capacity for abstract thinking. But it's not only about abstract thinking. Studies also revealed that novel readers are more empathic and understanding in terms of social cues, and we know we can't separate charisma from social cues. Most business people know the importance of charisma, and I've met quite a few who had very healthy reading habits because they were aware that reading from different genres not only gives you confidence by being able to approach a conversation on many topics and levels, but it also helps your brain function better. They were dipping their brains into fiction, physical sciences, economics, philosophy, sociology and psychology, knowing that ultimately they will also apply this knowledge and information to their business, organization and lifestyle. I have come to know a lot of successful executives, and I didn't have to dig too deep to learn that most of them consider reading one of the best methods of relaxation and of getting rid of all the tensions collected throughout the day. Researchers seem to confirm this viewpoint, as they have found that reading for even less than 10 minutes can reduce stress by 70% and considerably prolong the longevity of the mind. They make others associate them with positive things. When we create associations, we basically link two or more things together. We make a connection between them. It's like when we are very young and we learn to speak and understand what grown-ups are saying, and our parents try to make us connect words with objects. Associations can be extremely powerful. The changes they are able to generate in our brains have a crucial effect on our life. If you have a dog, then you've probably noticed how it wags its tail more eagerly and intensely when you show it the leash, or it hears the sound it makes. That's because it associates that sound or that image with the fact that you're taking him for a walk. It may seem like a simple mechanism, and you might think, yeah, well, I'm not my dog. But the fact is that our brain is a pattern-based system. It's designed to link contextual things that are not necessarily in close relation. This sort of mapping occurs in the case of people as well. Try to bring to mind some of the people you know well, or whom you've just met, and observe what types of things you associate them with. People who are very charismatic intuitively or studiedly use this pattern tendency to their advantage, and are conscious enough to make sure people associate them with positive things, things that can trigger pleasant emotions and memories. This last habit is very well connected to all the previous ones. In fact, they all are interconnected, but this one comes to emphasize even more how you can consciously, honestly, and genuinely create a positive image of yourself by developing these 7 habits, an image that will support you in reaching your goals and live a happier, more joyful life, surrounded by quality people who also see in you a quality person. If, when people mention you or think of you, they immediately have the image of someone who always maintains his or her composure, someone who always listens to what they have to say, is curious about their feelings and opinions, careful with their needs, sincere in expressing his or her views, considerate and funny, they will return this positive energy to you and will always be supportive in your endeavors. When you have managed to cultivate this kind of image to those around you, the levels of your charisma will have reached the size of a skyscraper. Always keep in mind that repetition forms patterns of movement, of language, of thinking, of reacting, and patterns govern our lives. They are the ones that steal our attention. Use this brain skill wisely. Steal their attention. Enjoy it. Since there's no charisma pill yet that you can take to boost up your persona to new dimensions, you will just have to settle for the whole process. This is all about that process and what it involves. What your job is from now on, given that you've listened to all the phases and steps described here, is to start implementing them in your daily life without either pushing too much or adopting the anything goes type of attitude. Even when you feel you have a particular habit down and steady, and you think, I got this, you should still try from time to time to revise it and see how you could further polish it. Check if maybe there's a tendency for self-sufficiency. Sometimes your worst enemy is exactly that self-confidence that you gain from noticing results emerging, having things turning out the way you wanted them to. This can easily lead to self-limitation and arrogance, the two poisons that annihilate the process of evolving. The right way to take this process is like a new skill, passion, or hobby, because right from the start you will give yourself the advantage of those two indispensable elements for any progress: time, patience, and pleasure, joy. But here's the best thing about it. You don't have to wait until you have some free time on your hands, or until some necessary conditions are met. Yes, you can do it at absolutely any time when you've got some people around, whether at home, with your family, at work with your colleagues or partners, or at parties, in supermarkets, buses, in the streets with complete strangers, or people you've just met. At some point you will not even be aware of the process itself anymore. You will forget you are doing it. It will all become naturally a part of you and of who you are, and charisma will just happen, unpremeditated and spontaneously. While charisma is, of course, something deeply social, as you can't just simply charm yourself in the mirror and be done with it, yet it is something that comes from a good understanding of yourself, and this itself requires time spent, well, with yourself. Having charisma doesn't simply mean having a great tool for attracting the opposite sex. Of course, its power has a lot to do with how well you do with and in relationships, but it's not limited to it. Charisma can mean closing a successful deal faster, connecting with a larger variety of people in a larger variety of contexts, receiving positive feedback from people you make contact with, or even having your local shop assistant always give you fresh products or tip you off about the best products in the store. Charisma means energy, power, and strength. These will appeal to both sexes. Of course, there are other things to consider here, like knowing, for example, that your charismatic presence can make others feel uncomfortable. They can react in a less positive way, but don't hold it against them. People who are less confident or have some emotional issues they should be dealing with can easily become jealous, envious, or even hateful. It happens to the best of us. Sometimes a charismatic figure appears and we feel threatened. However, if we learn to be observers and take it as a chance to practice our own connection with ourselves and with other people, a chance to see how it's done or how it's not done, to see how people act, react, and interact, we can transform even these negative tendencies and integrate them into our self-development process. When we are the target of such emotions and negative thoughts because our charisma is functioning at super levels, then it's time to tap even more into it and further reach out to new meanings and dimensions of human interaction. Polish your tactfulness, your diplomacy, and nip a potential conflictual state or tension right in the bud. We've pointed out more than once that achieving charisma is a process and should be treated as such. Thus, continuity has a great importance. We've also listed here several key elements in achieving it, elements and habits on which you should work diligently to reach the results you hope for. However, never forget that in the end, charisma itself must come out as authentic, and it always does when the process is an honest one, done under the principle, know thyself. So don't overdo it. You will know it when you feel it, and you will feel so good in your own shoes. Finally, you will fit them perfectly. This is the ultimate goal of being charismatic. Good luck! Hours of self-work and patient polishing skills, behavior and attitude he or she has put into it. You can't see the hardships, the doubts, the fears, and the tears that have ultimately shaped that person. Think of a martial arts master. His spontaneity and ability to adapt to any condition will seem natural to anyone watching him in action, but you know very well that behind them there are thousands of hours of practice. Behind them lies persistence. It doesn't mean that an inborn inclination or talent doesn't play a role in it as it does with everything. It only means that without preparation and dedication, any initial advantage is mostly wasted. Also, think of an actor whose performance you've observed over the years, or whom you can trace back to his or her debut. Probably the talent was there right from the start, but that refined, confident, well-mastered performance in later years took a lot of time and practice to develop. Maybe you've taken part in discussions about some charismatic figures. Understanding what charisma is. Charisma, that trait that can launch someone into stardom like nothing else, that can build empires, destroy nations, or get you a superior dish in a restaurant. From a very common perspective that only sees in it some tangible inborn traits, to a more profound outlook which points to a phenomenon that cannot be explained in rational terms and links it to something mystical, charisma has always been a fascinating subject in itself. In trying to define and understand the word charisma and the reality behind it, one is bound to consider the idea of synchronicity, of timing, of presence, being in the moment, sensing when it's the best time to speak or to remain silent, feeling the right words that should be uttered with the exact tonality and the stress put exactly where it should be put. Knowing when to be persistent and when to simply let go, the kind with a "Made in Hollywood" mark on them, or about someone whom you actually know. Or maybe you've debated the whole charisma topic before. If that has happened, or it is only now that you are first taking time to consider this subject, there are some stereotypes that will naturally be brought to a table. That is because every time we see someone displaying an impressive level of magnetism and appeal, consciously or not, we try to find the roots of this magnetism, and we try to understand what makes a person so socially successful. However, when we do that, we often do it in such a way that is not exactly healthy and beneficial for us, our self-esteem, our self-development, nor our purposes. We either put that person on a pedestal, endowed with qualities which we would never dream to even come close to having. We lower that person in our eyes so that we can feel better about ourselves. Or we look for all sorts of differences that obviously make our circumstances disadvantageous compared to those of the charismatic person we are discussing. Growing up in such a wealthy You can't just be in the moment without learning to pay attention first, to be an observer, to listen and master the art of staying focused. It's all about the ability to connect with yourself and the willingness to go all the way in getting to know who you truly are and what you can truly do and achieve. It's about discipline and awareness. When you're watching a movie, you see about 2 hours of continuous footage which can affect you in so many ways, from getting you excited, inspired or scared, to making you sad, curious, or merely entertained. But those 2 hours are the result of many hours of planning, organizing, rehearsing, filming, editing, shaping and reshaping, until a final piece, a final product, a final statement is made. And you have it all in just one go. The same is with people. You might see this completely knock-your-socks-off charming person who effortlessly handles situations and people in such an elegant fashion, but you can't see all the "Our family, I'd be charismatic too," or "Who has time to work on charisma when you work even on weekends to support your family?" or "He is an actor, of course he knows how to be charismatic." Is this type of mentality familiar? These reactions are mostly triggered by certain stereotypes. What we have come to think and understand about charisma is based on some preconceived notions borrowed from others, subscribed to through social standards, or cultivated by movies and media. The most obvious and poisonous stereotype related to charisma is that one has to be physically attractive to have charisma. We've always been led to believe that these features are entirely prerequisite, inseparable from any possibility of being charismatic. We are so accustomed to seeing beauty and charisma merged together in movie characters, or with real-life successful people, as an inextricable relationship, that unless we see ourselves as gifted with undeniable beauty or